Welcome back to Adventures with Rosie. Now, one question we get asked all the time is, how on earth did you manage to survive in a small space with 3 kids, full-time on the road?
It's not always smooth sailing, and today we're going to talk about some of the harder things when it comes to full-time RV
life. Now, before we rip into it, we should say that despite the thumbnail and probably the way we grabbed your attention, that thumbnail, this is not going to be a big moan session. This is just sort of our list of 5 things that we found hard about life on the road, that maybe we didn't expect, and some practical examples of what we did to get around them. So number 1's a bit of a no-brainer. It's pretty obvious, but it's living in a small space. It's kind of hard to live in a 19-foot box by however many feet wide it is.
With 5 of us.
With 5 of us. Even with 2 people, I can imagine that the challenge is still there. So I think for us, one thing that was really important is we built ourselves up to going full-time on the road. We have been doing this for 6 years now. We bought our first bus when Harvey was pregnant. And
When I was pregnant.
We bought our first bus when Chelsea was pregnant with Harvey. And we started doing a weekend, a Saturday night here, a long weekend here, 10 days on the East Cape, I think was the longest we did. We did 2 weeks here and there, and so you gradually build yourself up to living on the road. The other thing I would say, and that is really key, is that everything in your caravan needs a space.
Don't overpack. The worst thing you can do is have too much stuff in your van and not have somewhere to put all of it. It just gets under your feet and gets really frustrating.
Make sure everything's got a home. We used to travel with some things in the shower, like a roll-away water tank and a broom, and it just got... You'd have a shower, so to have a shower, you've got to take the water tanks out of the shower and put them outside, and that sort of thing just gets old real quick. So, yeah.
Everything's got to have a home.
Yeah.
The other thing is get outside as much as possible. That helps. It helps a lot. Even when it's raining, get outside, get some fresh air, and get out from under each other's feet.
Get out of your small space.
And also learning to read each other's cues a lot better as well. So the first couple of weeks when we were full-time got quite tense. There were a few chats about, do we just go home? We're not into this anymore. And then after a while we started to pick up on each other's cues about when one of us was getting frustrated about something, or learning what annoyed each other about being in a small space. Like if one of us is trying to cook dinner and the kids are hanging off your legs or whatever, so the other person could then take the kids and go outside, or give each other a breather, or make sure that we weren't pushing those buttons basically. And that was really key, is figuring out what our cues were to let each other know when it's getting hard.
Now, hard thing number 2 is the kind of, we're going to call this the mental load, but the kind of most exciting part about traveling full-time is that you get to go to new places, right? But what we didn't really expect, and what we didn't foresee when we left, was that when you go to a new town, when you live in a town, right, you know where the best supermarket is, the cheapest gas, who to get a haircut from, where your doctor is. Then you go out on the road and you go to a new town you've never been to before, and you've got to think about
where you're staying that night, where you can get fresh water from, where's your dump station, where's your laundry, where's your supermarket, where's your petrol, all the stuff, every single time you move.
Exactly. So there was this kind of increased mental load of just having to think about those things. And some places you'd go like, can we even get the caravan into the dump station? There's 2 dump stations in town. Which one's better? And
there's only one place for water. In this town, what happens if they've got a sign out saying boil only notice? There were a couple of towns that we went to where we got there with expecting to fill up our tanks, and there was boil only. You had to boil your water,
so we didn't even bother putting it in our tanks. Just the boilers. So I think a real practical approach to this is to get on the apps, like the NZMCA. If you're an NZMCA member, there's a travel app. There are the apps like
there's a bunch of different ones.
Campify and there's a few other sort of camping apps in New Zealand. And Google Maps. Google Maps is awesome for dump station and reviews. But most of our campsites we actually found by just talking to people. So many people said to us when we met them on the road, make sure when you're here, you stay here. And so we'd jot those down on our phone. And we'd look at it 3 months later and go, where were we supposed to stay in Greymouth again? Oh, here. Okay, these people said it was safe. These people said the water was good.
Yeah, access
that sort of thing.
good,
Yeah. So talk to people. You get a lot of tips out on the road.
For sure. Point 3 is really the healthcare system in New Zealand. So New Zealand healthcare is district based. So whatever district you belong to, you can get free healthcare in that district. You have to be registered with a particular GP to be able to go see that GP at a discounted rate. As soon as you're out on the road and travelling around, you cannot get to your GP. You end up paying full prices, which can be quite expensive. And if you need to get anything done at the hospital, you're expected to go back to the district that you're registered in. We found when we were on the road, the girls needed their lip ties doing. We had tried to get it done when they were babies, and they said they weren't bad enough. Eventually their teeth came in, and we couldn't even brush their teeth. Their lip ties were so bad. So we got referred to the hospital to have it done, but Rotorua Hospital. So we would have had to fly up to Rotorua and fly back. Which was not feasible price-wise. So took a lot of driving around and calling around and trying to find a dentist who would do it. We were going to have to pay $600 to get it done. And then on the day they said they figured out a way that they could refer it back, so we didn't have to pay. But it was a bit of a mission.
We had to drive way down to
Dunedin. Because it was the only dentist we could find in the South Island who was willing to do it. And even then it was going to be for a pretty hefty price. So we were lucky we got out of that one, but it was a mission. It was a mission.
I also had an ingrown toenail and it got infected, and we were on the west coast of the South Island. It was a long weekend, and it was just like my toe was going really red and sore and like hot and so I had to go to the doctor's after hours to get some antibiotics. Now, I was stung $150, and I knew it was going to be expensive because it was after hours and I wasn't registered with that GP, but it was $150, and then I got $3 worth of antibiotics for 2 weeks, which sorted the toe out. So that sort of thing, like if we were at home, we would have just popped down to the GP, right, and maybe $15 for me to see the GP here in Taupo, and it's free for the kids. But that is one thing to factor in if you have sort of ongoing medical conditions or you need a certain type of medication. You might want to chat with your GP about, if I travel around, how do I do this? Like, can you just fax scripts? What do I do about seeing you? That sort of thing. So it's not a showstopper, but you definitely need to think about it and probably have some money set aside for that sort of emergency, I suppose.
One thing I found is with my health insurance, I was able to access online GPs for free. So I had a throat infection when we were down south, and I was able to have, I got an appointment within 24 hours, talk to someone on a video call. They sent a prescription through to whatever pharmacy I was closest to at the time, and that was awesome.
It's pretty funny seeing Chelsea on a call going like this up to the camera so they could see the back of her throat. But it worked, and they just sent it to the local pharmacy and we picked it up. So that is one of the trickier things there. Alright, number 4 on our list would be rainy days and winter itself. And not sort of just the odd rainy day, but long periods of time. Our attitude has always been when we travel is get your jacket on and get outside. Because, like we talked about in point number 1, a small space is even worse on a rainy day. But obviously if that sort of continues on for a week, it can get quite tricky.
You got wet weather gear all over your caravan. It brings condensation into your van, and it's just not particularly pleasant.
So one thing we did in winter was we found a permanent campground to stay at, partly because we went into a COVID lockdown when we were travelling, but we found a campground in a pretty beautiful part of the South Island, and I think it was $150 a week, or
not even that. I think it was 120, and that was a powered site, and it was just amazing. So a lot of campgrounds will have like winter rate, so if you're staying longer than a month, you get a special weekly rate. So typically that campground probably would have cost that a night normally. Peak rates.
$80 a night.
So to have that for a week, and then you've got all the facilities on site as well, was pretty key.
So then you've got your showers and your laundry and stuff. Another sort of really practical thing to do is libraries, museums, and like kind of any sort of... There's small little museums and things all over New Zealand.
Most towns have something that you could go and wander through for free or for a small donation. that tell you about the area. They're really interesting. The kids loved going to museums, actually, every time we went to, and going to the library. Like, just sit and, I mean, most of the time we couldn't take any books home. When we did winter over, we got an account at the local library so that we could bring books back, but usually you just go sit for an hour or two. It gives everyone a bit of a breather from being in the same place. And yeah, we
were quite surprised actually when we were down in Motueka area, Nelson. We just signed up to the local library over winter, and we explained what we were doing, how long we were there for. We signed up and we took books home, and we went back, so that was really good.
It was neat. It was our one of our pretty needed activities to get the kids out of
and also good to get books for us as well. Another really practical tip is get a load of those 3M hooks from Mitre 10 and stick them all over your shower.
Yes.
For jackets, umbrellas. Our shower looked like a drying room for most of winter. Jackets, we had the overalls for the kids as well. Gumboots on the ground. Those little 3M hooks, we stuck them all over. We need to do it again in this caravan actually for winter, but stick them everywhere.
Yeah, we could open the roof vent up in the shower to air it out, and without making the rest of the caravan too cold, and it meant that the wet weather gear wasn't all in amongst everything else.
So they're your friend, 3M hooks.
Point number 5 is something that we couldn't really avoid at all, which was friends and family. Obviously when you're traveling, you don't have that community feel. You're quite distant from everyone that you spend your normal life with, right? So that was pretty hard, and there were a few times there where we felt quite guilty for being out and travelling and not being around our family at the time. There were a few emergency trips home that we needed to do, so it was nice to have a little bit of a financial buffer to account for those. But that was one of the big reasons that we ended up coming back full time, is because we just found it really hard being away from our people.
You miss a lot of birthdays. Like both our sets of parents live quite close to us. My mum helped out a lot when the twins were younger with sort of taking Harvey and that sort of thing. So you do miss a lot, although you can like video calls and messenger and keeping up with them in that way. You do feel like you miss a little bit. Although we were kind of surprised because we came back to Taupo and just sort of reconnected with all our friends. We were only gone 15 months, but
you do kind of pick up where you left off, but it's still tricky at the time, I think. And we did do video calls a lot, but one of the key things that got us through was having those key people in our lives come down and join us for the adventure. So we would have a week. Both our
parents they hired motorhomes.
And we'd do like a week or two. We'd say, okay, well, let's meet you here, and then they'd come down and we'd travel for a bit with them, and then they'd go home again, and then a couple of months later someone else would come down and we'd travel with them for a bit and they'd go home again, and or friends who happened to be in a city that we were nearby would make a point to go over and visit. And and
don't get us wrong, like we made lots of cool friends and people we're still friends with now out on the road. There are a lot of families traveling around New Zealand. There are a lot of people with a similar mindset to like the way they're raising their kids, and that was really cool. And like when we wintered over, there was 2 other families that were in our kind of COVID bubble, like for that winter, that had kids at Harvey's age. Harvey learned to ride a bike because he wanted to impress a girl at a campground who could ride a bike who was his age. So that's why he learned to ride his bike in a few hours. So that aspect is really cool.
There is a community vibe on the road. Don't get us wrong. There's not. You don't feel isolated out there. There is a community vibe. As long as you're not afraid to go and talk to people and meet new people. It's just hard to be away from your loved ones sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think ultimately that's what ended it for us. Ended it sounds really dramatic, but Chelsea and I were saying like, let's get because you don't have to register kids here in school until they're 6 in New Zealand. So we thought, let's do another year. Like Harvey's going to probably learn as much on the road as he would at school. Sorry if you're a school teacher and you disagree with that. I made that up off the top of the head. But we were sort of thinking, let's do a bit more. And then we talked a bit about maybe we should do a lap of Australia. Maybe we should do the North Island. And then we noticed Harvey just kept kind of saying to us, I really miss my friends and my cousins. And when can I see my cousins? And
when can we go to Nini and Pop's house?
And we had a birthday. I think he turned 4 in the caravan, and he said, when do all my friends come over? We're on the west coast. in Westport. It was pouring with rain, and he's sitting at the table unwrapping a present, and he goes, when did Grandma and Granddad come?
Yeah.
And we were like, what? And he said, when are my friends arriving? And we thought, oh, okay. So ultimately we came back because we wanted to put the kids, reconnect and all that sort of thing. But that is a tricky aspect. There is sort of no super practical way around that.
Yeah, it was hard, but yeah, if you can get your family and friends to come and join you on the adventure, it makes it a lot easier. And
put the effort in to meet people out and about on the road, and then keep meeting up with those people as you kind of all navigate your own paths around the island. It's kind of cool to bump back into those people again. So that was the hardest part of living on the road. Again, we did have a pretty awesome time.
Oh, we did. and it's the positives definitely still outweigh the negatives by far. Like, it doesn't even compare. But it is worth thinking about those things before you go, because we didn't. I mean, half of those we didn't know about before we left.
I reckon the key is to get the caravan really dialed in, get everything set up the way you like it. Don't have too much stuff that you don't need to carry around. We carried stuff around for that 15 months that never came out of the lockers of the caravan, and when we got home I was like, we carried that around. So, and if you can find a way to change the seasons as well. So we had, when family came down at the start of winter for a trip that they were joining us on, we got them to bring down a box of things that we had prepared in advance of winter things that we would need, so that we're not lugging it around during summer. Like extra bedding, thicker jackets, that kind of thing. So they brought that down, and then we filled the box up with our summer stuff and sent it back. That's right. That's a little bit of a tricky transition, that winter-summer transition. And with the kids growing as well, and growing out of their clothes, even though we don't want to buy new stuff because we've got the next size up already at home waiting to go. Yeah. So it was a good way to sort of, before we went on the road, we set up these boxes that, if someone's coming down at this time of year, they can bring this box. Bring the winter box down and take the summer box home, Well worth doing, though. Highly recommend the lifestyle. We had an awesome experience. Yes. We'd love to do it again, so that might be in the future. Yeah, we need to do the North Island next. Yes. And I want to go back to America. Well, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the channel. Plenty of videos coming up. We're getting stuck into some winter camping now. Yes. Yeah. Exciting. So we need to get those 3M hooks out I talked about. Op shops are also really good on a rainy day. Cheap toys, cheap books, puzzles from op shops are really awesome. Board games. And then when you get sick of them, and when there's a million board game pieces all through the caravan, you take it back to the next op shop you go to, and you get something different. So there you go. There's another tip. They were key. Yeah. Alright, thank you for watching. Yeah. See you in the next video. See ya.